So this is the second lecture on Israel, and we'll continue to talk about Jordan. So this is the state of Israel today. Just to give you an idea, the entire country of Israel is smaller than the Dallas-Fort Worth area in physical area. It is a tiny place. You could put, like, Fort Worth would be here and Dallas would be here in this country. If, the whole thing is much smaller than Dallas, Tarrant, Collin, and Denton counties combined. So our metropolitan area is bigger in area than the whole country of Israel. And they have, I believe the number is something like 3 million people live there now. So it's about as little less densely populated than our metropolitan area. But it is a very prosperous modern economy. Now, this is a shot of Jerusalem. This is the holy city of Jews, Christians, and one of the three holiest cities for Muslims as well. This is the Temple Mount. See that wall right there? This wall defines the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. This is where the ancient temple of Solomon once stood. But the temple in Jerusalem was destroyed. The Jewish temple in Jerusalem was destroyed by the Romans in 70 AD and was never rebuilt. In the 630s, Muslims invaded the area, and then they built here this mosque. This is called the Dome of the Rock. It is a Muslim mosque, and it stands over the rock that tradition says is the one that Abraham was about to sacrifice his son Isaac on. So this is Mount Zion. This hill where the temple was built is Mount Zion. I'm sure you've heard of Zion in the Bible. And it is the hill, the mountaintop, where Abraham was going to sacrifice Isaac. And that is later where Solomon built his great temple to the Lord in the 8th century BC. But now it has this 1,300-year-old mosque on it, which is beautiful in of itself. This is another very big mosque. These two things are the third holiest site in Islam. So this is a place sacred to Christians, Jews, and Muslims. Now, one of the reasons, of course, why it is sacred to Christians is our Lord Jesus died on the cross and rose from the grave here. This is inside a giant church built in the Crusader period, the 1200s AD, which surrounds the tomb of Jesus. Now, there is good archaeological reason for believing the actual tomb of Jesus is inside this little chapel. The mother of the Roman Emperor Constantine brought soldiers, thousands of Roman soldiers, and had them carve away the hillside. The tomb, of course, was cut into a hill like a cave, but she had them chop away the entire hill and surround it with a chapel. And then later on, it was this fancier chapel was put around it. But inside this is a natural rock tomb. And strong tradition says this was the tomb our Lord laid in and rose from the dead in. And it is inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Sepulchre means tomb. So the Church of the Holy Tomb in Jerusalem. And inside this same building is a rock that tradition identified with Calvary, the place where Jesus was crucified. So when you go to Jerusalem, you visit this church, you can see the traditional sites of his crucifixion and his resurrection. So this is why this city, Jerusalem, is so very important to Christians. Its connection with our Lord's death and resurrection. So that is in Jerusalem. If you visit Israel, you want to see the Temple Mount. You want to see the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. You may also want to go see Masada. In that great revolt against the Roman Empire I mentioned in the late 60s and 70 AD, Jewish rebels against the Roman Empire were fighting to drive the Romans out. Well, they failed. And they retreated to this hilltop fortress called Masada. Masada. You can see it is in the very harsh desert, the very same desert, very near, where our Lord, when after his baptism, was tempted by Satan. You can see the kind of land it is. It is very barren. This is the wilderness talked about in your Old Testament and your New Testament. But Herod the Great, the very guy who tried to kill the baby Jesus, He had a fortress built on this hilltop. Now, you'd think nobody could get up there and to attack him. But the Romans were not to be trifled with. They spent a year and a half building a giant ramp to come up and attack the Jews in Masada. Shortly before the Romans were completed with their ramp and were about to attack them, all the Jewish defenders killed themselves rather than be captured alive and turned into slaves or crucified by the Romans. They took their own lives, a couple of thousand of them. And so this has become a symbol of Jewish resistance. People who are inducted into the Israeli Defense Forces are often sworn in at Masada on the idea that never again will the Jewish people be prey to their enemies and that they will fight to the death to defend Israel. And it's often done, that ceremony, on this site at Masada. It's a very powerful place to visit. Just beyond it, like just beyond this ridge right here, is the site of Qumran, where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found in the late 1940s. The oldest texts of the Hebrew Bible and other very important texts from the time of Jesus were found hidden in caves. The Dead Sea Scrolls just right around that hill right there. Again, in the fierce desert, the Dead Sea Scrolls. And that's the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea is the lowest place on the land surface of the earth. There are lower places deep in the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. But if you want to stand on dry land, there is no lower place you can be. This is about 1,000 feet below sea level. It is inside Israel and Jordan. And you can see there, because it is so low, all the water that flows from the River Jordan ends up in this lake. It's a big lake. It's called the Dead Sea, but it's really just a big lake. But all that dry desert land that the Jordan River flows through, it picks up all kinds of salts and minerals. And when it gets here, there's nowhere for the water to go. It's the lowest place on earth, and the water simply evaporates away in the desert heat, and it leaves this salt behind. The Dead Sea is so salty, no fish can live in it. No moss can live in it. Nothing can live in it but some very, very tough bacteria. It is covered with salt and all around it. But it is so salty that the buoyancy is amazing. I've been there. The water is so salty. If you have even the tiniest little cut in your skin, it will burn like fire if it gets in it when you wade around it or swim in it. But people can just relax, and everybody floats like a cork in the Dead Sea. So this lady is just chilling there like she's in a chair. You have to fight like crazy to go under the water of the Dead Sea. You just can't get under it without expending a lot of energy, and you won't stay down long because everybody floats like a top in this water. So those are some sites: Masada, the Dead Sea, Jerusalem, the Temple Mount, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Your writing assignment you see on GradeLink tells you to pick a site in either Israel or Jordan. And in Jordan, that is the Hashemite kingdom of Jordan, you see right here. Let me slide over a little bit. Right here. They're at peace with Israel now. They're an Arab country. They have a king, Kingdom of Jordan. They are on very good terms with the United States. They're our friends. And it's very fine for Americans to go there as tourists when we get to travel again after this present unpleasantness is over. But when you go there, the place you want to see is called Petra. And I regret I failed to look up a picture of Petra for you. Let me find a quick picture of Petra and show you what I'm talking about. If you have seen the third Indiana Jones movie, the third Indiana Jones movie ends at Petra, where they go and they find the Holy Grail, if you remember that one. So you've actually seen this in a movie if you've seen that third Indiana Jones movie. But I'm going to look up Petra in Jordan and show you some pictures of that. All right. Very good. Okay. So here, this is a picture of the treasury at Petra. Now, you see that beautiful thing there? This was built a little after the time of Jesus. So it's about 1,800 years old. And it is in the middle of desert, very much like the place where Masada is. And why did they do this? Well, there are natural wells at Petra And there was a people called the Nabateans who were long-distance traders. They ran camel caravans all the way down into Yemen to bring in spices and incense. And they'd go up to Jerusalem and they'd sell it, and stuff would come into Nile to Jerusalem, and they could trade their gold and other treasures of Africa. So they became rich because everybody had to stop and use their water in the middle of this terrible desert. And in the 100s and 200s AD, they became so rich, they could hire artists to come and carve these temples into the cliff sides. So this is all living rock. This is a cliff that they've carved away into it. And then there's inside big rooms. They call it the treasury, but it was actually not a treasury. It was actually a temple. But you can see, here's another one. That's a different one. That you can see that these amazing ruins. So if you're interested in this kind of thing, you can go there and see them in Petra, Petra, in Jordan. So your assignment is to pick a place in Israel. I've given you 5 good ones, or others you might find there you might want to visit, or a place in Jordan, and write me a paragraph about that in your own words. Do a little internet research on Jordan and Israel, and pick a place and give me a little bit of history, just a smidgen, but I want to make sure you're paying attention and that you're learning something about these places. Okay? So that is Israel and Jordan. We'll continue our tour of the Middle East or the Near East next time.